Welcome to the Life and Listings podcast. I have Stephanie joining us today. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, Jen. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited for what we've got in store today. So for the people that are listening today that have not met you yet, tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, because you're amazing.
Thanks. So I am a full-time landlord. I am a lawyer in recovery. So I practiced for 10 years and slowly made the switch to real estate as an investor. I've done some flips, but really it's long-term rentals and midterm rentals are my bread and butter. I've done a lot of really interesting deals with some creativity. I just bought my first property on a strictly creative terms, which is kind of fun, but I've done a reverse 1031, historic preservation tax credits. My first property was the 203K, which was awesome and difficult all at the same time. So I've been really able to throw myself into projects, and that's allowed me to buy real estate and ultimately create financial independence at this stage. And so now I get to spend a lot of time traveling and just doing more creative projects.
Amazing. Do you feel like I like how you're like, I'm a lawyer in recovery. Is that where you were able to do a lot of this and navigate the different contracts and the different processes? Do you feel like your law background helped a lot in that?
My law background definitely helped. I mean, it helped in research, I would say, most importantly, and understanding how pieces work together. So navigating transactions and understanding who's responsible for things and what parties are involved, what bodies control. That was all really helpful. The type of practice that I did was probate work. So helpful to understand the types of distress that some owners have. I know, of course, you can't buy your own deals. If you're an attorney, that would be a conflict of interest, but certainly gave me background. But I would say that the most important thing that it gave me is a lot of credibility. I made some incredible connections, but when I tell people that I'm an attorney, that comes with some respect. I think also some disdain, right? Being a landlord and being an attorney are not the two most beloved career paths, but I think certainly knowing the type of schooling that you go through, it really helps, as far as just your credibility and your ability to get things done, your ethics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could see how that would help, right? Because there's so many of us that are researching each of those and maybe we don't understand everything, so we might reach out to a lawyer, and you having that background is super helpful. So the topic we wanted to talk about today, I'm pretty excited about because we're both coaches with Investor. And remind me what your pod name is that you're coaching.
Mastering Real Estate Operations Through Systems and Processes.
See, totally my thing too. So I feel like I'm so excited. So what we're going to talk about today is just how you've leveraged systems and processes to scale your business, but it's also allowed you a ton of flexibility. You've been traveling a lot lately, right?
Yeah. So pretty much every winter I go away to the Caribbean for a month, 2 months. But this year I went to Savannah for 3.5 months, which was phenomenal. And, the portfolio just keeps performing, right? I get paid whether I'm there, whether I'm here. I had a tenant turn. Things went fairly well, right?
Yeah.
When I was there. And I think that has been the result of just a lot of work. I didn't know that that's the direction that my real estate investing was going to go when I first started, but I was working as a lawyer. I also started as a commercial real estate agent, and I started buying, a property or two. Everything I bought needed a rehab. So it was a lot of BRRRR deals. And so I was really getting overwhelmed. And I will say one thing that I'm not good at is dealing with overwhelm. And I don't want to move forward if I feel like I'm going to be uncomfortable and just stressed all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm also not a very disciplined person, and you need to be, right? If you're going to put in the water bills every single month to your tenants' monthly invoices, somebody's got to do it. And I will say I was being a very terrible employee. So I happened to hire a virtual assistant for this one task. Just help me with the water bills every month. That was something that was totally mindless. It was really easy to create instructions.
Yeah.
And as soon as I implemented it, I never had to think about it again. I audited it to make sure that it was happening. But, if I audit it every 3 months, every 4 months, that was great, and it was continuing to happen. I was seeing that the water bill was being reimbursed. That was kind of what I call like my gateway drug into leveraging and outsourcing. So once I started to take on more properties, I brought a dedicated virtual assistant in. She's 20 hours a week. I've had her for a little over 4 years, maybe 4.5 years at this point. And I had built out a lot of standard operating procedures, what we call the SOP, after reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. So I had been building those up, not really knowing what I was going to do with them, just knowing that I didn't want to recreate the wheel when I had a tenant turn, when I only had a tenant turn, once every couple of years. And I had already decided on best practices. So I would like forget what my best practices were until I started writing them down. So I'd built this playbook, and then I hired this virtual assistant, and then all of a sudden work was getting done without me. And it was good. So good, right? And then I actually had hired her, I'd say, before I was like financially ready and before I had enough hours to give her, but I wanted the dedication. So I had kissed a lot of frogs in the virtual assistant space, and some were quick to come and go, and I wanted somebody that was like a little higher caliber, that was dedicated to like a career as a virtual assistant that would stay with me. So I splurged, and I would say that has ended up saving me a lot of money in the long run, because now all these tasks that were responsible by other parties, I was able to like bring in-house and give to her, and it saved me time and it saved me money. Like bookkeeping was a huge one, filing. So everything we do is, you can tell I can get going on this. Like you can cut me off at any time, but I love talking about this. But we do all of our filing online, all of our folders and filing system. It's all electronic. So I've been able to outsource that to someone in the Philippines. My books, she knows all my tenants, all of my vendors, all of my properties. She lives in my email. So she takes a first pass at every receipt that comes in, every communication, everything that goes into the books. And she's able to just categorize it, classify it. And I'm just filling in the occasional transaction that is unique. I use my credit card when I'm out, right? So I would say it's really allowed me to step back, because I gave her the playbook and then I expanded on it when there were gaps in it. Mm-hmm. And now work happens whether I'm in Savannah, whether I'm in the Caribbean, whether I'm on a podcast, right? And she's able to really manage so much for me. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm very lucky to have been so overwhelmed and nervous about it at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this before. Like, I feel like people's perception of like systems and operations and SOPs and like all of those things, it's almost like this trigger word where people just instantly go, oh, that just sounds so rigid and so all of these things. And it's like, no, it actually allows you to have flexibility and growth and room for so many different things, whether it's scaling or if you just want to take a 3-month vacation and you know what you expect can like open up so many things. So like, did you kind of have any of those feelings from coming from someone that you felt you considered yourself, what did you say?
Undisciplined.
Undisciplined.
I hate rituals and routines. I'm terrible at them, but you need them.
So what made you decide that was the route you needed to go to grow your business?
I think when any book that you read, anyone that you talk to, it's all about repetition, predictability, right? And doing the same. There's a lot of repetitious tasks in real estate, and it was just felt like brain damage to me. Yeah. Like I really didn't enjoy it. And it's something that I knew like I would be better served if I was doing something that gave me energy rather than sucked energy away. Yeah. And also that, your bills have to be paid. They have to be recorded. You have to follow up on things. Like you can't own a property and just check out, right? So I knew it had to happen, but I couldn't be the one to do it. And so it was more like, how do I make sure that somebody's doing it without it being me?
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things that I know I do that it was like the first thing I delegated out, because it would be one of those things like I hate sending invoices. Yeah. I hate it. But it's a very important thing to happen because it's how I collect money, right? But I hate doing the invoicing to the point where I will drag my feet to do it. And I know it's the most important thing. And once it's done, it's very exciting, right? it was the first thing I delegated out to a VA to at least start it. Okay, can you start all the invoicing? I'll go back and double check it and I can send it, but at least I don't have to sit there and like type out everything. I think it's like those small things you start first, then you get hooked and you're like, all right,
that was your gateway drug.
What else can I delegate out, in my business? And I love how you're saying you created a playbook for something that doesn't happen very often. It happens every 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think even creating a playbook for yourself is so important because you forget what happened 2 years ago. Okay, how did I remove them from this? Or what was the process for that? And so it's not all about delegating all the time. Sometimes it's creating a process for your own self.
That's how it started, right? I mean, for me, when I first was building this playbook, I didn't know that I was going to have that virtual assistant. I was just struggling with it. I remembered I had a really great way of phrasing that before. So, it doesn't even have to be like big things in your business.
Yeah.
It can just be little templates. Like I have a great template for raising rents if someone's seriously behind, right? It's a beautiful template. It has worked every single time. And I could not remember it, right? When I was trying to think of it, I could not remember it. And thank goodness I had written it down and stored it. And it's now part of the SOP that, every May we review the rent and loss to lease and see if we need to get somebody up. And if we do, we bring that language right in because it's all documented. But yeah, I think it's kind of like lazy leasing, right? But the thing is that you're investing your time up front so that you have a lot more time later, just like we do with money, right? We invest, we buy something, it costs money to do it so that we then have residual money. I want residual time.
Yeah. I actually joke that the reason why I'm really good at operations is I'm kind of lazy sometimes. Like I don't want to redo the work every time I'm going to do the thing. Yeah, I did it this time really great. Why do I need to redo all of that work 6 months from now when I'm sending the same email or doing the same thing? If there can be a template or an automation or a workflow, I'm going to start there first.
Yeah.
And not recreate the wheel because I want to be doing more fun things, whether fun to me is growing and scaling my business or just spending time with my kids. For you, it's traveling for months at a time. So you need those SOPs because you're not, physically there. How long have you been doing your couple month trip every winter?
Maybe 4 years at this point. And I think when I first started, I had SOPs in place, but I didn't have the infrastructure to be remote and mobile. So
yeah,
we're very much looking at the problem and working backwards to what are the obstacles. So
yeah,
I wanted to be remote. And some of the problems I was having were I had to deal with tenant turns while I was away. Okay, so we actually just talked about this on the pod yesterday. So do I need to be there to show the property? No, but I do want to participate in some of the vetting of the tenants. One of the things that I do is I like to do a site visit to my properties. How do I do that if I'm not there? I do a Zoom call with them, and I tell them it's just a meet and greet, and I ask them to take the call from their house. And then while we're on the call, I say one of the things I have to do is a site visit. Since we're on the phone, would you save me a trip? Just walk me around your house. Show me the house, right?
Yeah.
And so while we're already on the phone, and I really reassure them, I'm not looking for it to be tidy and perfect. I'm looking for it not to be disgusting, right?
Yeah.
And so that gives me a way to see their property when it's unsuspected, right? You can't actually just show up at their house unannounced and knock. Right?
No, I know.
You actually get more access to their house this way, and you get to meet them. You get to put your best foot forward. So I was able to just check off all the obstacles and work backwards to create the infrastructure and the SOPs. And then I think we've talked about having a virtual mailbox so that now not only do I have anonymity in my business, but I also have location independence where I'm still getting my mail. And that allows an even further level of delegation because my virtual assistant has access to that mailbox too, right?
Yep.
So all the obstacles end up being just this beautiful flow of systems and processes once you like untangle them.
I love it. Make it sound so simple, right?
Oh, it's been so many work, but I will tell you, it is now very simple for me.
And now I'm sure you can plug on additional properties because you already have the playbook that your expectation of this is how we do XYZ. And there's going to be little minor tweaks per property, I'm sure, but you have the basics built out for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have templates on property details so that my VA knows like what to look for and where. And then, of course, instructions on what parking looks like, whether it's a garage or whether it's a surface lot or whether it's street parking, right? So like we have templates and fields that are that, and then the SOP basically says like how to accommodate all of the changes.
Yeah.
So adding properties is not that hard. I think the biggest thing is like the human variable, right? So like contractors, vendors, tenants are very creative. They're always going to come up with something that you weren't prepared for and isn't in your FAQ, right? So like there's definitely some adjustments, and I'm not completely out of my business. I'm still, the operator, but I have lots of management checkpoints in me and the tenants at this point.
Absolutely. So if someone's listening to this and maybe they are running a business and they're ready to delegate, or maybe they're running a business and they just want more flexibility, what tips can you give them to get started?
Yeah. So I think one of the first things to do is like track your time and find out where your lowest value, most highly repeated, most disliked tasks are coming from, and start to make a list of those, right? And then as you start to see them take shape, find the ones that have similar skill sets that are needed. It's probably administrative. That I think is across the board the easiest thing to push aside. So let's assume it's administrative, right? Then I think at that point, when you've identified maybe 3 tasks, start to build out the SOP. And so I like to do mine in a 3-column format. And I start with the left-hand column, which is just what to do. And it's very high level, superficial chronology of what am I doing. It's not anything more detailed than that. The middle column would be how to do it. So once you get more proficient, you feel comfortable, you know the websites to go to, the links to click, that all goes in like the what to do, the very specific. And then notes and resources might be like when you're really comfortable, you're taking a video of you doing it on Loom or Soapbox. You're doing screenshots with Snagit and you're, pointing out where the fields are. So it's getting like super, super specific.
Yeah.
But that is not something, you don't have to have the fully built out SOP or a full comprehensive understanding of your process to even start the SOP. You start on that very high level column of, maybe your SOP is like 1, list a property, 2, vet your tenants, 3, move them in, right? And then you just start to expand that. And I think once you start building that outline, you'll see that you actually are much more prepared for a lot of things. And it's just about documentation at that point.
Yeah. Start small, start simple, and then build from there. Because I think that's for sure where people get overwhelmed. They're like, oh my God, I've got to create this entire playbook of my whole business. No.
Don't eat the whole elephant at once. Just take one bite. One bite will get you started. And, and then also see if you can repeat the process following your instructions, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a really good check. Is something missing? So I like to start with just a little bit of mental organization of like, what am I trying to delegate and what does it look like? That's even before you get to the hiring process.
Yeah.
Like you need to have something to give them. You can't ask them to come in, listen to you ramble once and expect them to be able to perform. That's,
oh my gosh.
You got to check your own expectations.
I feel like we could go into a whole other podcast episode about like delegating and like hiring the right way. We'll have to have you come back on that one because that one's a good one and a real big pain point for most, right? Hiring their first VA. Well, this has been fun. Totally in, both of our wheelhouses, systems and processes. Okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit. Stephanie, what is your superpower?
So I think that I am very resourceful. When I first started buying real estate, even though I was a lawyer, I was underemployed and couldn't afford the house that I wanted. So very resourceful, high standards, right? Really difficult to make those meet. And so I was able to find a way. That's how I found real estate. I bought a duplex so that I could have a house in a great area that and the 203K allowed me to renovate it to my standards. And then somebody else paid my mortgage, right? So I got in using this like creative strategy, what I thought was creative. I didn't know I was investing. So that was kind of the tip of the iceberg. And I feel like that trait has shown up for me over and over and over, where I've figured out how to get what I want. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense that I should get it. And I'm really, really proud of that. It's a trait that I'm so thrilled to have.
I love that so much. And I feel like it's such a great trait to have as a woman too, because you're like, no, I'm going to get this. I don't care how, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. And awesome. I'm going to add a second one, if you don't mind, to the list.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a calculated risk taker. So I am okay with taking big risks and moving forward. If the spreadsheet is green, we go. So that is something that I think allows me to take action where a lot of people will overanalyze. And I do deep due diligence, but I also, maybe it's FOMO. Like, I don't want somebody else to do a deal that I know I can do, so I'm going to do it. But I think taking action has proven to be really helpful for me too.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably is the FOMO, right? You're like, man, if I wait too long and I analyze it too much, someone's going to snag it. So I've got to, put myself in it.
It's a deal, and I don't want somebody else's success to be showcasing that deal. I want it to be me.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, it's been amazing you have you on the podcast. If anybody wants to reach out to get to know you or, just connect with you, where's the best place to send them to?
So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me by my names. You'll have the links to the socials, right? So you can find me by my name. And I also have a course for other self-managing landlords in the long-term rental space called the Lean Landlord. So that's LEAN. You can follow that as well, both on Instagram and Facebook. So we'd love to see you in either place.
And I'll drop all that in the show notes, whether you're in YouTube or listening in on a podcast. And Stephanie, I thank you so much for being on. I'll see you in a couple of weeks in person.
Can't wait. All right. Jen, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.